This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Hey, Adam Murray here, one half of the NBA team, the Place to Be Nation pop feed. This is part 6 of our Gone Fishing series. So, enjoy. Again, thanks for listening.
Hornets down by 2. Kaminsky! Oh, Big Frank with some thunder! Oh, energized back in the dairy.
It is a new beginning with the Charlotte Hornets, Adam Murray. Now, Michael Jordan is still the owner. He always will be probably until – I mean, do you think Michael Jordan enjoys being the owner of an NBA franchise? And if so, do you think it's Charlotte?
Of course he does, because they basically gave him that team for nothing, and now it's worth $1 billion.
Because it was Robert Johnson when they were the Bobcats, and then Johnson was done with it, so he just basically gave the ownership to Michael Jordan. And the Rick Cho era is over.
Johnson owed money still on it, and they just said, "Look, just pay his debts, and you can have this team." Okay, that's great. That's more money for me, but. So I don't know why he wouldn't.
But at the end of the day, I think that was still a bad deal, because now in the last 10 years, NBA franchises have all become money cash cows.
Yeah, so now he has way more money. You don't care.
Michael Jordan just came back. Well, let me ask you this before we actually talk about a bad team. The Netflix 10-part documentary. Are you stoked?
My Netflix account is currently suspended because I changed credit cards and haven't updated it yet, and haven't had time to.
Okay, I'll initiate you then. Netflix and ESPN are doing The Last Dance, a 10-part documentary series about Michael Jordan, because that's sort of the new thing. You know, you had OJ Made America, which won that Oscar. You had the Lakers and the Celtics, which was a 3-parter. You had the Andre the Giant one on HBO. Everyone's kind of getting into the sports documentary game.
Everybody needs to get.
This is Netflix big stab.
We need to stop these Making a Murderer 10, 20-part series where I don't have 30 hours to watch this stuff.
Well, it's the opus. Like, the idea is we want to make the definitive Michael Jordan movie, because I guess Michael Jordan and the Max didn't cut the cheese. You know what I'm saying? I will say Michael Jordan and the Max was not bad. Did you actually go to an IMAX theater and watch it?
No.
Why not?
I don't think we had one near us.
No. Well, that was 1999 or so, or 2000, somewhere like that. But anyways, it's called The Last Dance. The trailer dropped about a week ago. It looks awesome. But, all right, we're done with Michael Jordan. But we're not done with Michael Jordan's team, because Rick Cho is gone and Steve Clifford is gone.
Don't you think that's kind of odd you let both of them go? Isn't one usually win out over the other?
Which one was let go first? Was it Cho?
It was Cho, I believe.
He left. He went out, I want to say, around March. Well, then Clifford was gone a month later.
He also made a terrible. His downfall was just terrible drafting.
Where do we start? I mean, was it re-signing Nicholas Batum to max money? That'd be one.
But there's nothing wrong with Batum. Batum's not a bad player. It's just when you have Nicholas Batum, who you call Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, on the other side, who do exactly the same thing and have exactly the same strengths and weaknesses, it's fairly useless. It's tying your franchise to the legs of Marvin Williams and thinking he can do anything. It's trying to squeeze out the last ounce of juice on Al Jefferson. And that's why, as much as Steve Clifford sucks, he got those guys to play. And but here's the roster, it's really a bad roster.
Yeah, but I will say it does make sense that one got fired. It was a little jagged where one got fired a little bit after the other, because there was a little bit of friction there. It wasn't like Cho and Clifford were always hunky-dory on the same page. We all know about the Jeremy Lamb thing. You and I have talked about that forever, where it seemed like management really liked Lamb, but Clifford just would fall in and out of love with the guy.
It's that, and they fell in love with Frank Kaminsky, which everyone says, why did you do that?
He comes off the freaking bench. He was a lottery pick 3 years ago, and he came off the bench in year 3 or 4. I mean, come on now.
Dwight Howard not bad. Still defensively sound.
He had some 30-point games this year for Charlotte. He had a couple of flashback games where you're like, oh, that's a Dwight Howard I remember in 2010 and 2011.
And that's the thing is you could shit on Nick Batum all you want, but Dwight Howard's getting your touches. Mm-hmm. Anytime you're going to try to toss it to Batum, no, I'm just going to dump it down to Howard, and you know Howard's not going to pass that up.
And if it runs perimeter, you know where that's going. That's going to Kemba Walker, and deservedly so. Walker was their best player. He's been their best player for about 3 or 4 years now.
You have that. You have Michael Carter-Williams bet on himself, and it came up Nerlens Noel.
Yes.
And you have Cody Zeller, who you re-signed, and
I don't hate that deal. I think that was actually, I know he was like a top 3 or top 4 pick when he was drafted, but I don't think Cody Zeller's a bad player.
Okay, you don't think they're bad players, but this is a luxury tax team. Is there a worse luxury tax team ever?
Ever? Are you saying ever? Because I could talk about Isaiah Thomas's New York Knicks.
There was no luxury tax back then.
Okay, the Brooklyn Nets of either 14 or 15.
But they still made the playoffs. Before they blew it up, they, with Garnett, Pierce, and Joe Johnson, they still made the playoffs. This team
it is a very, anonymous team, especially given how much money that they're spending.
And this is finally the last year of the old money deals that are going away, and that's why the sort of what's Kemba Walker going to do? You could actually trade him, and are you going to give him max money? You don't have max money. Would Kemba Walker want to stay there because your team sucks, and you should sell high on him because he's never going to be higher now with his low cost, and you could ship out a Kid Gilchrist or a Batum with him and bring back a package, or you could get a high lottery pick for him and.
The first thing I would do is do whatever I can to either trade Marvin Williams or Nick Batum. That's the first act I would do.
But who would you can't, there's no dumping grounds anymore.
That's what I'm saying. You'd have to find one. You'd have to find one of those bad tank teams like Dallas or Chicago, a team that'd be willing to do that in order to get to their salary floor if they can't get any free agents. They would have to be willing to do that. Kemba Walker, anytime you ever hear that, those little interview drops of disdain of I was, it's kind of been a challenge and you're that any kind of hint of unhappiness, that time is running out. And that's the case with Kemba Walker in Charlotte.
Yes, that's the unhappiness, and that's just a big elephant in the room, the big storyline of what will they do with him. But I think to me, I think the question is more of, is this more on Malik Monk than him? Because you instantly disagreed with me, and I'm just trying to figure out why. Because you have this guard who allegedly was able to play. Do you think if you get rid of Kemba, you have sort of a backup in him you can sort of put out there, and his development is key, period?
Okay, he's a rookie, and he's a shooting guard. Now, Kemba Walker is more of a ball handler, so a little bit of different styles. The other thing is, it's quite, because we saw this with Kemba Walker when he was a rookie, when they were still the Bobcats. Maybe Malik Monk is good, and we don't even realize it yet. Because Steve Clifford doesn't give rookies a lot of chances.
He doesn't give rookies chances, and then just look at that roster. Kid Gilchrist, Batum, Monk doesn't fit in because Monk is just a streaky shooter, whereas those two guys aren't shooters. So no plays are being drawn up for him. You're not gonna redo plays just for your second unit of Carter Williams, who was god awful, and him.
Yes.
So you're putting out Kaminsky, Carter Williams, Malik Monk, Jeremy Lamb.
Yeah.
And I don't even know who else would be on the court still. That, you think you're going to get anything from any of those guys? And yeah, like you said, the development, you traded for Hernan Gomez, which everyone's like, what happened to him in New York? I don't get it.
This is Willie Hernan Gomez.
Yeah, he was good there. Then all of a sudden, he's buried in Charlotte. How is Frank Kaminsky getting more minutes than he is? That's just
I just don't think Kaminsky is an NBA caliber player. And even if people say, well, he averaged 11 points in a game and he gets to the free throw line, it's yeah, it's fine, but defensively, he is just beyond awful.
Well, is he ever going to be a starter? Is he ever going to give you 30-plus minutes? No.
No, I think he could be an eighth man on a good team.
And the problem with him is, it wasn't his fault he was drafted 9th. It wasn't his fault that Boston offered 4 picks. Was it the rumored Brooklyn pick? Even if it wasn't, you were still giving up 4 first round high, second round picks for the, Justice Winslow. And
yeah, that was the infamous Justice Winslow rumor about Boston desperately wanting him and trying to give away draft picks to get him. Yeah.
Yeah, and if they did, it was probably would have been this.
That's one of those great NBA GM urban legends that we'll never get confirmation about. The other one is Atlanta wanted to give up 3 or 4 draft picks to get Paul George, but we don't know how true that is either.
Well, that's the thing is, it was an urban legend. We don't know how the picks were, but the consensus was they did offer a lot for that pick to move up.
Yes, but you can't hold that against him as his career goes along. It's just one of those things.
That's the thing is, he is unfairly forever judged to that standard of, you would have had a Brooklyn pick, but you took Kaminsky. What were you thinking? And, especially if they already had Cody Zeller, and I forget who their backup was, but was it Plumlee?
We're at
Charlotte.
For Charlotte, their backup.
Who did Dwight Howard replace?
I don't. You got me sort of at a blank. I'm not even necessarily sure, to be completely honest.
It was Plumlee because they traded Plumlee and some other Bellinelli for him.
Yes.
To Atlanta.
Yeah, and everyone said that was a steal. And at the end of the day, it kind of was because Howard did, like we said, put in a lot more production than I anticipated.
He looked production, but it's just at his age, you're going to get what you get, and that's the end of it.
Here's the thing. It's like, it's like that whole Shaq rivalry that he's always had where Shaq always called him out for trying to play more like a big man. And here's the funny thing about Dwight. Because of his injuries and because of the limitations physically for him, he was playing more in the deep post, and he did play like more of a big man, but only because of where he's at in his career, which made him more productive than people thought. Maybe he was just a bad fit in Atlanta and a bad fit with the Rockets.
And a bad fit with LA.
Yeah, I mean, the difference with Orlando. Well, the difference with Orlando is that he was in his prime, and the team was revolved around him, which is fine.
Only be run out by so many people.
You talked about the issues with Monk's draft position along with Kaminsky. Do you feel the same way about Kid Gilchrist? Now, he's still got a player option for that 2019, so he might have 2 more years at $13 million or more. I don't know if you can trade that. The thing with Kid Gilchrist is I wanted to like him. He was picked number 2 when he was drafted. But I just don't feel like I feel like he's a move away from being good, finding his calling. Like, I just don't think he'll ever find his calling in Charlotte is what I'm trying to say.
But is he good, period? Is he just...
I think outside of the shooting, he's good. That's how I feel.
Is he just, let's say, a bigger Andre Roberson or Tony Allen?
Well, I don't even think he's nearly as good defensively as Andre Roberson.
So there we go. There's his ceiling and his floor. That's not really a glowing...
It's not, but it's not. He's not a bad player. But is he worth $13 million a year?
He's not a bad player, but I'm saying when Batum is a similar player, we've seen instances where it was supposed to be, if your team's together for 5 years, that's good. They all could grow together. But the problem is, if you share the same strengths and weaknesses, and you get into a hole, you can't shoot your way out of it in a league that only requires shooting now. You can't. There's, the back to the basket is those days are done. You need a quick 3 followed by another quick 3 followed by another quick 3. That's not. Who's your quick 3 shooter? Kaminsky? Ooh, that's not good.
The other thing with Batum, who you said kind of like takes a lot of the minutes that Kid Gilchrist would play stylistically, is that Batum in his last 2 seasons has not done himself any favors by signing a huge contract and then probably having 2 of the 3 worst years in his career. So that's not exactly glowing either. They were 10th in points per game, but offensively they were middle of the pack. Same defensively. They were just it sort of speaks to the Hornets upon themselves. They were just a very blah team. The only thing they really excelled at was not turning the ball over, which has always been a Steve Cliffordism. They rebound the ball well, and the other one is they were first at free throws made. So they were more of an attacking team. They didn't take a lot of threes. I have to imagine under James Borrego, who for those people who are familiar with the name, he was the interim head coach for the Orlando Magic when Jacques Vaughn was fired years ago. He's been an assistant with the Spurs for a few years, and now he resurfaces as the head coach. And he was hired by the new GM, which is Mitch Kupchak. So we have a new GM and a new head coach, sort of like running things with the Charlotte Hornets, but I don't know how different it's going to be.
Okay, here's a quick question then to wrap them up. Who's going to win? Will it be Borrego, who will probably say, I'm from the Spurs camp now, we keep our team together, we don't gut things, we sort of figure it out, or will it be the Kupchak, I'm going to trade everybody away if I possibly can?
Yeah, but is Kupchak really like that? He does also have that sort of mindset at times when he was with the Lakers of let's just kind of keep things the way it is. He only would make those panic moves when the Lakers would start to dip. But when the Lakers,
this team's in panic mode now. So
yeah,
but okay, so then fine.
But here's the thing: who's in panic mode? Is it Jordan? Is it Kupchak? Like who's the one who's gonna? We know Jordan's gonna win out on that.
Well, Jordan probably is because it's an ego thing now. Like your team sucks. You're an owner of a shitty team. So okay, then will Kemba be on this team next year?
I say no. I think he'll be traded.
Okay then.
But if you do that, then you're tanking. Now you're at a point where you have to unload everything. That's the head of the stake.
That's the linchpin right there. If the rest of the team, the grenade has to drop. So
yeah.
All right, they have interesting choices. They have lots of choices to make. So good luck with your mediocrity and your luxury tax crappy roster.
2019, a lot of these guys go off the books anyway. So
that's the story for everybody, though. Mm-hmm. Everybody's going off the books, so everybody has money again, and it's going to be the same mistakes we had 2 years ago.
It's very quickly. Team need. What would you go after in the draft? They have the 11th pick.
Whatever falls to you. You're not going to get the top talent. So if somebody slips for any reason, mop them up, or just package your pick with Marvin Williams and get rid of that salary.
I'd try to find a good point guard who can pass. That's what I would do.
Prince turns it over. Olynyk with the steal. 2-on-1. Look at the big fella take it all the way, and then Prince slaps it into the nickel seat.
Adam, we're going to the fortress, but it feels more like the fortress of solitude or the fortress of sucking or something with the letter S. That's kind of funny when we talk about the Atlanta Hawks because there was just not a lot to laugh about. With
silent, empty arenas.
Well, attendance has always been an issue with those guys. Now they do have like new ownership. The funny part is that when they had the lottery, Jamie Gertz was there. I don't know what the relation was. I don't know if she was married to one of the co-owners or she was a. Do you remember the actress Jamie Gertz?
No.
I don't remember her that well either. But I just remember looking at her there. I'm like, well, I know the Hawks didn't win the lottery. Because if the Hawks had won the lottery, they would have had like some old lady or one of those sentimental cases of, oh, it would be nice if, as a lucky charm. And that was just a super random thing. But, anyways, I don't know if the weird ownership that the Hawks have is sort of factoring into some of these decisions where they're basically went into tank mode to the point where Mike Budenholzer he did not get fired. He just left. He just said, you know what, I'm done with this.
And it was hey, I want to leave. Hey, good. We're not gonna.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I don't know if they restructured his contract because of the Danny Ferry incident, which kind of moved Budenholzer up into the GM role or team president role or whatever they gave him. I don't know if that was sort of an interim thing where they paid him the same amount of money and he just took on that different role. Obviously, Budenholzer shot himself in the foot with a couple of bad deals that we've documented many, many times on the show, like, the signing of Dwight Howard, letting Al Horford walk, because they wouldn't give him that extra year. Things like that you sort of question in hindsight as for GM Bud, but Coach Bud was a very good coach. This team, as crazy as it sounds, they actually overachieved at 24 and 15.
I don't know if they overachieved. You have Dennis Schroeder, who is just merely a serviceable point guard. He's not that good, and I don't really know how much. This was his year to have that second gear, and just it never happened. It's just like, okay, you're there, but really whatever. You have Taurean Prince, who is potentially going to be a cornerstone. You had John Collins, who was good, solid.
Yeah, the problem I have with Prince, well, the problem that Prince had coming into the NBA was that he was on the older side because he had been a senior at Baylor. But he's one of those guys, like, I compare him to another guy who played for the Hawks once upon a time, Damari Carroll. Like, he's just one of those guys that just kind of hangs around. He's a decent shooter. He plays good defense. He does a lot for you. He's sort of a jack of all trades, you know.
And then after Collins, you have nothing. And that's sort of the problem is you had this roster with Horford and
oh man, they had Corver, who they wound up trading,
and
Paul Millsap
and Teague.
Yep.
And they're all the co-players of the month and whatnot, but there was nobody development behind them. And then this team just has no talent, and really. This team has potential because if you want to be a viable free agent destination, you have to have players people want to play with now. It's just not going to be, well, you gave me the most money.
Yeah, ask Philadelphia.
Yeah, people are...
You need the guy. And I don't think John Collins, even if he develops next year and takes a real leap, like say, for example, Collins next year averages like 17 and 10. Like, he's not as great as he is in terms of the dunking and the highlights. He's not that guy, And Dennis Schroeder, like you said, is not that guy. And definitely Kent Bazemore is not that guy. The only thing Kent Bazemore was good because their salary responsibilities were so low is that he actually kept them at the cap basement, at the salary floor. That was the only thing that was good for him. But if you want to add pieces, then the first thing you're trying to do is get rid of Bazemore.
Yeah, that's the contract was a bad contract, but it's not his fault if they wanted to offer it to him. But okay, basically the alpha and the omega for Atlanta is this year's draft. You got 4 picks in the top 33. You have to have somebody people will want to play with now. You need to have excitement.
Yeah, and I want to put some excitement in that draft, that draft position. But the way that's sort of fleshing out, things might change by the time we get to the draft. But when you look at it, a lot of people would say, well, DeAndre Ayton's probably going to be off the board and probably Luka Doncic off the board. A lot of people are already cluing in it's going to be Marvin Bagley, and that the Hawks always wanted him. That's sort of the slant. But we know how things change. Do you think a bigger guy like Bagley or a Jaren Jackson Jr. or Mo Bamba, do you think they can fit in Atlanta? I mean, Atlanta is in desperate need of a talent infusion no matter what. But do you have one in particular that sort of like rustles your jimmy or that you feel like, oh, this guy could actually fit well?
That's funny. I don't think it's a matter of a fit. It's just, the people you mentioned are all where you currently have Prince and Collins. Well, okay, that's awesome. You're going to get somebody who you already have your starting small forward who might be your cornerstone. You have a power forward who's nice developmental. It's going to be like, well, they got Mohamed Bamba. He's a defensive stud. Yeah, but he's not going to be exciting. And you need excitement. You need to hit on your picks to have this team have a chance. You can't just throw crap at the wall and then hope something sticks, sort of like Sacramento did. And
because you have the other picks, you could try to go for a guard later, like a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or Trayvon Duval, or even like I think this is seriously a reach, but a guy like a Jalen Brunson, you could probably go with somebody like that right outside the lottery. And then you got number 30 and number 33. Maybe you can pair those together, get back into the late 20s and get somebody that you really like that sort of fell through the cracks. That sort of happened with John Collins, to be honest. John Collins was a guy at Wake Forest that a lot of people just saw as like a true big, and he kind of wound up being a really bouncy 4, kind of like a better version of Jordan Bell.
Yeah, and nobody sort of expected that. But at the 3rd pick, they have their choice of any position, anything who they want. They can go any which way.
Do you think best available kind of is the way? You could try to. I know you like Prince. I know people like Prince, but you could try to get another wing, like a guy that a lot of people are in love with, or like Mikal Bridges or Michael Porter Jr. I think MPJ even though a lot of people are very skeptical about his game because of the amount of time he missed, he might actually fit kind of well there.
He could. It's just. We look at last year. We look at Boston. Well, we have Jaylen Brown. Let's draft Tatum. Wait a minute. Aren't they the same player, same position? Didn't you just get Hayward? Why are you need other things? And you know, at 3, they're going to get a talent who they have to just hit on it.
Yeah, and I don't think they need to worry about, like, I felt like when Budenholzer was in Atlanta, when they were drafting guys, they were obsessed with guys that had experience under their belt. Like, I felt like that was one of the reasons why they had Prince. That was one of the reasons why they drafted another guy we haven't talked about yet, DeAndre Bembry, who I think is still in their plans. And I feel like they've finally sort of, with Travis Schlenk now being the GM, they've sort of transitioned to a more conventional style of drafting, which is either go with best available or go with a good young guy that can really provide for you even in the lean years. And we are definitely in the lean years in Atlanta. I want to kind of hit on some of the couple players that they actually still have. Dwayne Dedman, this one's kind of interesting because he actually played really, really well in terms of his stats, 9 points, nearly 8 rebounds. He has a player option at $6.3 million. I think that is a sure opt-out, but do you think that he might just re-sign with Atlanta for more?
I don't know why he would when other teams can offer him stuff.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
there's a lot of teams with cap room now, and there's a lot. He's a serviceable big, and he's not going to command 15 to 20 million. So
that actually kind of a lot of people immediately looked at that when he came out of San Antonio and played fairly well, and he signed that, and a lot of people were like, man, that seems like a discount, and it turned out to be that way. He was a discounted player. I just don't know if he'll be discounted for the second time. That's the problem.
No, he probably won't.
Miles Plumlee's deal, it'll be up at the end of next year. And like I said, they sort of are at salary basement level anyway because they're not attracting big-time free agents. Total ass player.
All of that just to get rid of Dwight Howard.
Well, you know, not the worst decision in the world. He was a terrible fit in Atlanta. And do you, if you have a team as bad and as morose as this, do you want an attitude from a guy like Dwight Howard?
And that's, you know, you get Dwight Howard, which caused Horford to leave. Well, we could play all 3. No, Horford's like, no, you can't. I'm just going to go where I'm wanted.
And then when you're dipping down in the G League in terms of number of like double-digit number of games played or games started, that's when you're really realizing, oh, my God, this is not good. Like, I mean, I'm not trying to pick on guys like Isaiah Taylor, Josh Maggette, or Maggette, whatever they call him, Andrew White III, Damian Lee. Like, these guys – I mean, maybe they're NBA players if you squint and look hard enough, but it's like these guys should not be starting games, playing significant minutes. Tyler Kavanaugh was another guy who played a lot of minutes, who I don't think we'll see again. One guy that they did have in the mix for quite a while is Mike Muscala. He has a $5 million player option. I actually think he'll just pick that up.
I don't know. I think he could opt out and get the same thing elsewhere.
I'm interested with that. You know,
because he could be a nice rotation player for an actual good team.
He's a big man shooter, but he's got decent defensive skills, and he's a really good free throw shooter. So
he could be beneficial on a good team.
What about Malcolm Delaney? Good journeyman player. He had a little bit of a better start to the year than he did finishing the year.
He sort of crapped out at the end, yes.
Yeah, unrestricted free agent. We'll see. You know, it's kind of, I think he's unrestricted, is he? I know he's got sort of some complications because he wasn't directly drafted, but he had played overseas. Like, I think he's unrestricted though.
I don't know, but just to wrap up Atlanta, the difference between them and like Chicago and Orlando is you could be a destination if you put a couple people around. Orlando just doesn't have a clue. Whereas here it's like Taurean Prince might be something you could build around. Get a number 2 piece that people can rally behind, and free agents might start looking at you.
Yeah, I think these are the guys before the guys. Like, I think a guy like Taurean Prince will probably wind up being moved so that they can get to a position to get the player that really will get them over the top. But we're talking years down the line. I think Schroeder is it's kind of similar to what I just mentioned. He's just a guy that's there, a placeholder starter who gets a lot of minutes because they just don't have anybody else to give the minutes to. But he might wind up being out of the door by the time they actually improve. I want to ask you about Lloyd Pierce. He was sort of a key defensive assistant for the 76ers all the way through under the Brett Brown era. I mean, we're even talking going into when Sam Hinkie was there, and they were god-awful. finally had the turnaround, and Lloyd Pierce gets his chance in Atlanta. Is there anything in particular you're looking for when it comes to the Lloyd Pierce era?
He's the incredibly young one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
he's actually very close with LeBron James. Like he helped develop LeBron James early in his career.
The Hawks management saw something in him. I would have thought the Spurs assistants would have gotten more of a harder look, but maybe you went Spurs last time, and you sort of have a sour taste now because of it, or
yeah,
you have Stackhouse, who's a winner in the G League, and reportedly very good with his players. So if you're going to give the reins to a young, unproven guy, hope you pick the right one.
Yeah. The one thing that's interesting is that their cap space, they're at $82 million estimated, and that's including the Bazemore deal. This has been talked about ad nauseum with Chicago. This is one of those, let's throw a bad deal at him kind of things, which you mentioned at some point. Do you foresee that? We saw a little bit of that last summer with Jamal Crawford, where they were moving around his deal so that they could get some cap space for the LA Clippers after they got rid of Chris Paul. Do you think that that's something that might be a possibility with Atlanta, where they kind of go for a bit?
They're the new rental team.
Yeah, but I don't know if a guy like I'm thinking of a guy like Ryan Anderson, or you would talk about Otto Porter or somebody like that. I don't think they're that willing to take the risk. You know what I'm saying? It would have to have a lot of restrictions and a lot of strings attached.
Yeah, but again, new front office, new coach, sort of figure out your game plan, where you want to go as a team, and find a direction.
Yeah, and this is Schlank's guy, so this is the true new beginning.
I guess, timing is everything.
Right? Westbrook, the drive and the kick. Melo for three. That one comes up short. Big offensive rebound. Westbrook with the triple-double. His 5th consecutive and the 22nd of the season. Westbrook for the lead. He's got another, and he scores! Never say die!
It's Westworld that we're talking about, Adam Murray. Or is it the Oklahoma City Thunder? Let's just call it Westworld.
It's just we should just call it Trouble Ahead.
Well, there's always trouble ahead in Westworld if you watch that show. People shooting each other in the head with robots trying to take over the humans. And we're not talking about Westworld. We're talking about the Oklahoma City Thunder. A lot of weird things there. They put through a lot of deals after Russell Westbrook won the league MVP, averaged a triple-double, but he got eliminated in 5 games by the Rockets in the first round. So obviously the immediate reaction that every owner has with a superstar player, where they feel like they're overwhelmed, they don't have enough help, well, let's go add some stars to the mix. So they make a trade and they get Paul George. It looks like a swindling. All they gave up was Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis, who was a rookie. It looks like, I don't want to say the table's been turned, because Paul George actually, if you look at the numbers, 21 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals. He actually had a very good year for Oklahoma City. The one that I really found funny was the Carmelo deal that they put through around October, where they gave up Enes Kanter and what was the other one? Doug McDermott.
Doug McDermott, your boy.
But the thing was, Melo, just no pun intended, but just mellowed out. He just was not nearly the same player, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people say, because Victor Oladipo, when he was in Oklahoma City, didn't look so hot, playing beside Russell Westbrook, because of the fact that Westbrook's just let's just call a spade, a very selfish player, a player that takes a ton of shots. His usage rate is just extremely high. A guy like Carmelo Anthony, who needs the ball in his hands, and he his usage is cut in half or in thirds. That's very tough to get over.
Well, I remember during the season previews, we did Oklahoma City. Then we had to redo it because they added Melo. And I was just saying, how is this team going to mesh? Because Melo's going to have to play the 4. He can't be he's not a 4. But it's what he's forced to play, and like you said, he needs the ball. He's not going to see the ball. He's going to get all garbage points. And with the team having no chemistry, and then you watched them play, you watched them have no chemistry. It was just okay, I'll take a turn. Now you take a turn. Okay, now he takes a turn. We'll all get the ball, but we're just going to take turns. We're not. There's no cohesion at all with this team, and again, the owner went all in. They gutted their roster. You can say what you want about Canner, and you can say what you want about Oladipo, but those were solid pieces, and you can't just hang on the excuse that if Anthony Roberson didn't get injured, our team would be okay.
You mean Andre Roberson? I don't remember. I think Anthony Roberson played at Florida, huh?
I'm good for just mixing up names. So I came.
No, Andre Roberson injuring his knee was a big deal because that was the first. Well, didn't he make first team All Defense or second team?
He was, I think, second team.
He either did this season or he did last season. He was a. I mean, he got. That was one that they weren't sure they were going to be able to afford in re-signing, but they got him on $10 million a year, which was not a bad deal at all.
It wasn't a bad deal. It was a good deal. It was one of those like, well, yeah, that's what he's worth. He can't shoot, but he is a defensive guy. So, we said, like they last year they come with a lot of choices. They've run out of money. Especially, the Westbrook Supermax hasn't kicked in. They're screwed with them, and they're kind of screwed now because if George leaves. Okay, Melo's going to opt in. He's going to be he's not going to, I'm going to walk away from $27 million to get what he's like worth not even 10 now.
Let's backtrack that one about Westbrook because that's actually similar to the James Harden situation where people were super confused because every summer and every fall you heard, oh, Harden gets a new deal. And people were like, how is that possible? The reason why was that Harden and Westbrook, because of the length of their contract, when the new CBA kicks in, their deals were grandfathered in, which means that they were able to get rid of their new contracts after 2017 or 18 and sign new and put together new deals where they were able to get more of the Supermax because they had put through all the incentives. So Westbrook signed a 5-year, $205 million deal. Now, there's this new fear with guys like John Wall, with his new one, Russell Westbrook. Give me a hand. What other one got the Supermax? Harden, but Harden I think is worth it. The thing with Westbrook is that a lot of people are looking at it as like a super albatross, untradeable contract once you get into the 2020s, and that's kind of hovering over all of this with the Thunder is that if you try to re-sign Paul George, number one, can you even afford it and add good pieces to the mix? And also, Carmelo Anthony with his $27 million player option is obviously going to opt in. And the Thunder fans are already put through guerrilla campaigns where they want to try to buy out Melo in his last year.
Oh, yeah, that's what I had just said, how he's going to opt in.
I said it more I said it more fancy-like.
They're going to cut him. There's no need
for
him.
Are you sure about that? Are you sure that Sam Presti's going to do that?
You can't. It's $27 million. He hasn't fit on this team. You can't trade him elsewhere because he still has his no trade clause.
But the percentage of the buyout in that case would probably be about $18 million. That's nothing to sniff at.
It's nothing, but it's like, well, do you want to be buried where you're like you can't start anymore because you're slowing down, and then. You're just clogging everything up. But Paul George, yeah, they have to re-sign him because if they don't, we have our Kevin Garnett early 2000s Timberwolves again, where it's just him and if George leaves, who's the second best player on that team?
Here's the problem I have with Westbrook. It's the same. Well, I don't want to say the same situation as Kobe after Shaq left because Kobe became increasingly unhappy, and then they swung a few deals to get him back to relevancy. I think Westbrook kind of likes it that way.
Of course he does. This is my team. Screw you.
I agree with that. Like that was sort of you talked about how you have the ball, I have the ball, and it seemed discombobulated. The funny thing though, if you look at the season, the series against the Jazz was very much like a microcosm of the season, where look at how fun this team is because they won Game 1 of that Utah series. Then the smart team Utah sort of figured out how to get around all that. And then by the end of it, Westbrook was just taking one shot after another. I think he took like 45 to 48 shots in the Game 6. Had a great line, but good Lord, how many shots can you take? And that was how the season went. By the end of the season, Westbrook just sort of convinced himself, I have to shoot the ball all the time. A lot of people would say that was sort of just his sneaky way of trying to get back into averaging a triple-double by the end of April, which worked because he averaged a triple-double for the second season in a row. Again, a tremendous accomplishment. But it does get to a point where you wonder, does Russell just want to run the show?
Kind of. It's the same way. He'll get the triple-double. LeBron gets the triple-double, but LeBron's making other people better. You just see, Westbrook just getting stats for the sake of stats.
And honestly, I don't think LeBron cares if he averages a triple-double. I don't think he cares.
No, he wants to win, whereas Westbrook's like, I need the points. I want every, there's never been I'm going to take a discount to make this team better.
How many games have you seen him overreach to get that 10th rebound or 10th assist at the tail end of a game? I've seen that many, many times by Westbrook.
Exactly, and say what you want about him, not that he rode them out of town, but they had to get rid of Harden because of him. There was no money, and then Durant didn't want to stay because of him. They weren't super close, so...
Do you think it came down to that?
Kind of.
A lot of people would say it's because of some BS in the CBA at the time, that the money that the Warriors could offer and the money that he could get by staying in Oklahoma City wasn't that far apart. That would be one of the reasons why he did it.
You could say that, but then he said, I'll take a discount for Golden State. I think it's one of those things that players are taking notice of, Washington, and this is what happens. Here's your two stars. They hate each other, but they're forced to play together. So it's just, I want to play with my friends. I want to win. The same thing when LeBron went to Miami. I don't think you could just put together a team. This isn't, NBA Live where, all right, I made my trades. We're all good. I'll just force the ball. Everyone will be...
Well, the other part is we haven't talked about the Pistons. Well, we'll get to the Pistons in time. But the thing with Blake Griffin is that he had a trade kicker. So now you make that salary on that last year even bigger. Westbrook and Harden and Wall, they have trade kickers in those deals. So do you want to run that risk? Couldn't you even do that?
But all it takes is a team that's saying, well, we'll take them. We used to think there's certain contracts are traded. All of a sudden, oh, hey, Mozgov got traded. What? Omar Ashik? What? How are these? How are these corpses getting traded? So some owner will be like, yeah, I could take, Phoenix could take him right now and trade him nothing.
The Thunder defensively were actually very good if you look at their numbers. They're first in steals, fifth in rebounds, always a good rebounding team, 10th in points allowed, 9th in efficiency. The problem is they were just so sloppy on the offensive end. They were middle of the pack in turnovers. They were 12th in points per game. They were, thanks to Westbrook. Even though Westbrook gets the 10 assists a game, it all revolves around him. So those 10 assists are that's your baby. So, they were 28th in assists because it was all through him and they had nobody else to sort of spread the wealth. 3-point shooting, I think they definitely need some improvement. I don't know what they're going to be able to do to get a sharpshooter in the draft because those guys are not cheap anymore. But you got some salary you can unload. Maybe you can buy out Kyle Singler. You can probably let Jeremy Grant walk in free agency. He was a good bench guy, averaged 8 points and 4 rebounds, nearly a block a game. But I could see Jeremy Grant get overpaid somewhere else. And I don't think the Thunder can afford him because of a guy like Steven Adams. And I like Steven Adams, but the problem I have with him is that he just didn't seem to improve.
No, he seems to have sort of hit a ceiling.
Which is okay, but if you're making $24 to $25 million a year, that's not good,
No, it's not good. Terrence Ferguson, their pick last year, has been fairly, if not always, absent. So,
except for Gatorade commercials.
Yeah, it's so there's no real development of young players, especially with Nick Collison still on your team, who's finally retiring.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. Collison was one of the original Sonic Thunder carryover guys. I remember the Durant told the story about the free agent meeting that he had with the Thunder before he decided to leave, and Collison Collison made him cry. Like he was begging him to stay. Like he was very, very, very well respected in that Thunder. He'll probably be like in a coach for the G League or like an assistant. You know, like he's going to be in that organization forever. He's tremendously respected. But yeah, his career is done. What do you think of Singler? He's got a non-guarantee in 2020, but he's still got another year left at $5 million. And that $5 million is valuable now, you know, because of their cap room.
He's does nothing.
Yeah, but they could use a little bit of that to try to squeeze in a good player or a decent player.
Well, I meant that you could trade him. I meant no. I thought the question was what does he provide for this team?
Oh, I get you. I mean, I'm talking about the space that he can provide by being moved out.
Yeah, you could move him out, but
get a Corey Brewer again. Like, I don't think Corey Brewer – you know what? I take that back. I think Corey Brewer might just re-sign there.
Corey Brewer, who knows? It's amazing he's still in the league.
I know, but he just seemed to fit nicely with Oklahoma City.
You forget about it. It's like, oh, he's still there? Remember, he was like a top 6 pick. And it's like,
yes.
Oh, yeah.
He came out with Horford and Noah. He was a great wing in college. Like, he was the perfect college wing. I loved him in college. But in the NBA, it just didn't work out. So, Raymond Felton, will he be back?
No.
Josh Eustace. Is the Josh Eustace experiment over? He actually did get some time. He averaged 2 points and 2 rebounds. But this is the man who was drafted in the first round, and they didn't even offer him a first-round contract because they didn't have cap space at the time, which is still one of, like, the funniest things I've ever seen where, like, it's like you want to keep this guy on your books, but you don't even want to play him. You know, it made no sense.
Yeah, and it's like, well, that's why you take a euro and stash him.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you know, I guess their luck is these G League contracts. You get 2 cheap players. So
do they pull a Monte Ellis and buy out Patrick Patterson?
There might be somebody who could take him, or he still might provide some.
He just didn't fit well with them at all, and
who did fit well?
Well, that's the thing. Like you know, because of Westworld, like you're just in this place where it's like it's all about him. I got to give a lot of credit to PG because PG just kind of made it work. Like he was able to get to the free throw line and get a lot of 3-pointers and play good defense and sort of be a spearhead for the team at times if Westbrook wasn't making shots. Like I thought George fit at
So you think it might be a coaching problem then?
Well, Billy Donovan got the dreaded vote of confidence after they got eliminated by the Jazz. So you know what that means. I would love to see Billy just go back to college. I thought he was a tremendous fit there. You know, the thing is, too, like a lot of people poo-poo on Donovan for the struggles that the Thunder are having now. But remember, Billy Donovan was the coach there when Scotty Brooks couldn't figure out what to do with them. And Donovan comes in, and they came within a win of going to the NBA Finals.
Yeah, but then where's all this ingenuity? He seems to have lost it, and everybody just giving him like, okay, Westbrook, just go ahead, do what you do.
I think Donovan's obsessed with balance. I think he likes a team that's like good on offense, good on defense, but they're not really showy. You know, the thing is, when you have superstar players, it's hard to do. You know, you got guys that really want to, you know, kind of freelance, and then you got the ultimate freelancer in Westbrook. He does whatever he wants.
All right, final question: Does George come back?
My gut says no. I think he'll wind up just taking the allure of like a new destination and with the Lakers, or you know, I'll give you another weird one, Philadelphia, like something like that, where they're you know, where he can find a new setting and really help out a team that's on the rise, kind of thing. Whereas with Oklahoma City, it's just like if you stay there, like you're predicting, you know, you get your max money and you know you can kind of settle there with Westbrook, but man, can you make it work with this guy? Yeah, that's the question.
Nothing there. Good anticipation by Victor, who wants to work on showing you what he's got. You get some great help here. You see an athlete. Victor throws it down nice and easy.
All right, Adam, the Paul George, the PG era, I guess you could say, in Indiana is over. But it actually turned out to be not so crumbly and crappy on the other side for the Pacers. You know, it's funny sometimes with these teams, like when you have this superstar that you've really like pinned all your hopes on and you're begging them to stay. Now, some of them, like LeBron when he left Cleveland in 2010, yeah, it's all darkness on the other side. But there's some of these situations where it's like, wow, like I didn't think there was life after this one great player, and it turned out for the Pacers that was exactly the case.
And with the Pacers, this is what happens. This is why all these teams take on these reclamation projects. And, he's still young. And nobody, with the Victor Oladipo trade, nobody expected him not to score 20 points a game. It was just, he's not going to lead the team. He'll get his point. He'll just be, a big points on a bad team type guy. Then all of a sudden they overachieve. They play as a team. We mentioned, in our preseason how, like they were doing some things that like they were trying to be competitive, but then it wasn't like the Bojan Bogdanovic signing. That was like, well, why do they do that? He's too good to be on this team, and he doesn't seem to fit in. And then all of a sudden, let's get Sabonis. Let's go deep. They sort of fit right in where everybody sort of has their own role.
Well, Sabonis came in with the Oladipo trade, the Paul George trade.
Yes,
and a lot of people thought that was a steal on Oklahoma City's part.
They thought it was a steal because they didn't get a pick with them. It was just like, you got these two guys. All right. And then all of a sudden, it's they got lucky.
Victor Oladipo, deserving All-Star?
On the East, yeah.
I mean, he's probably going to win the Most Improved Player award. I know that they announced the finalists not that long ago, and Oladipo's one of them. I always kind of saw that in him, but I'll be honest with you. After the Oklahoma City campaign, which was just a year, now playing beside Russell Westbrook, I think we're all kind of coming to the conclusion that he's just like a pit of misery to to work with especially if you're like a backcourt mate. But when it comes to Oladipo, like after Oklahoma City, I just about gave up on him. I said, I don't know if it's there. Maybe, and then he just signed like not a max extension as an RFA upcoming with Oklahoma City, but he signed up to like $20+ million a year.
80 million or something. It was
good money.
It was a very big deal for him. I was like, well, why was he getting it? And then it's like, well, yeah, he's getting his minutes, and yeah, he's playing with Westbrook, and then now we know who was the problem. It wasn't him. It happened to be Russ. But, we're not talking Oklahoma City. We're talking Indiana. And just all their guys overachieved.
But the point I was trying to make is what changed when he went to Indiana? Like, what was different? Like, did you see anything different in terms of his style of play? Because in Orlando, he played a lot of two. He handled the ball a lot. What changed in Indiana?
Well, Orlando, he didn't have a coach. Orlando was Jacques Vaughn, and what is Jacques Vaughn going to teach you? And Jacques Vaughn is trying to have him be a point guard where he wasn't. And then, he learns Russell Westbrook, and then all of a sudden now, I don't want to say expectations were gone, because, number 2 pick, all right, you're going to lead our franchise, you're the face of the franchise, you're going to be it. Okay, you're Oklahoma City, you're going to make the playoffs, you're going to make a deep run, you're going to take on Golden State. Hey, you're in Indiana, you're going to be a lottery team, you suck, nobody cares about you.
Now, they also had a couple of guys that they already had kind of fit into the system. You already talked about how they added Sabonis, how they signed Bogdanovic. They also brought back Darren Collison, who turned out to have a pretty good year for them, and Corey Joseph. And I think that was just a straight-up trade where they had given away C.J. Miles to the Raptors, right?
Yes.
It was like a swap. But they brought back, Lance Stevenson, Miles Turner. He's looking up, but he's got a restricted free agency coming up at the end of next season, which means it's very likely he might be one of those October, September extension type of people. And then there's Thaddeus Young, who has a $13 million player option, but he played very, very well this year, specifically against LeBron defensively in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, but did he play well, or is he is who we thought he was? He's not going to be a superstar. He's just good. He'll get some points, but was his points really anything to write home about? No. Is his defense lockdown? No.
But in his 30s, is he going to be looking for the extension now?
That's the thing. Do you want to cash in that money for some more years?
Yeah.
But and then the return of Lance Stevenson for the 17th time, where it's just like, okay, we get it. You only fit there and you suck everywhere else.
Outside of that, their bench wasn't really that deep. They got a little bit of progress from people like Glenn Robinson III, who seems like to be like a lifelong project for the Pacers. Al Jefferson just fell off a cliff. Was he even on the team playoff roster?
He is just his ankles just fell off.
And then Joseph Young has a team option at $1.6 million. I don't even know if they're going to accept that. They could just easily decline and just try to add maybe like a veteran to the mix. TJ Lee's a rookie, but he barely played.
Well, that's the funny thing now. Is like how all of a sudden people are like, well, Indiana's a good free agent destination now. Your team, they're good, as opposed to, that's the, why would you want to go there? You go there to die. Why would you? They're terrible. But it's just, let us not forget, Monta Ellis. They just amnestied him last year.
Yeah, they bought out his contract, which had multiple years on the contract.
They didn't try to trade him. They're just like, yeah, we're done with you. And then, strangely enough, that seemed to have been the catalyst, was just, Monta Ellis gone, his 15 shots a game gone, and all of a sudden, now you're, again, it was team play, and, did we expect that from Nate McMillan? No.
No, I mean, what I didn't expect was that a Nate McMillan coach team would be like top 10 in offense. That I did not expect. Now, they were 17th in points per game, but they were 12th in efficiency.
And then once the playoffs came, it was just Oladipo had the ball the whole time, and he tried to Giannis everything, and they sort of turned into Milwaukee 2.0.
Yeah, Turner had a lot of problems in that Cavaliers series for some particular. I can't really pinpoint why, but they actually did get some good play out of Bojan Bogdanovic. The problem is, and this has been proven 2 years in a row when Bogdanovic played for the Wizards, is that when crunch time comes, Bogdanovic is just completely unreliable.
Yeah, he has short stretches and that's it. And
yes,
he's a great six man off the bench, but it's just once the starters come.
He had the 130-point game in Game 3, but he completely disappeared after that. Now, Collison played very, very well, and he also averaged 5 assists, 1.4 steals, just a very solid year for a solid point guard.
But is he a solid point guard? Is he really that good? Like, his numbers weren't terribly.
He's better than Corey Joseph. I mean, and Corey Joseph's a solid backup.
Oh, really? That's your statement? He's better than his backup. That's your justification for him being good.
Well, that's how you get into that. I mean, it's the same problem that we have, like we always talk about with me and Mahimi with the Wizards. It's like, well, he gets paid like a star, but he's not one, so he's just better. I guess he's just better by proxy than what they have behind him,
No, he just got paid because it was that 2016 crazy year where we have tons of money. So, well, everybody's going to go out and spend it on people who don't need it, and then look, now everybody's in a luxury tax.
And Collison was at $10 million, which was not so bad. I mean, that actually sounds about right for him.
Which is not really that good. He's there and he did stuff, and 5 assists a game, 5.5. That's not really huge numbers for a starting point guard.
Well, the other thing is that he worked well with Oladipo because he could do off-ball work as a scorer, and it allowed Oladipo to just kind of roam and try to run a lot of pick and roll and screens, and Collison would just kind of like flare out sometimes,
and
which
also
gives him space.
Let's not forget about Oladipo. How old is he?
Oladipo, I want to say, is about 24 years old, 25 years old.
And that's the thing with taking these one-and-done kids, even though he wasn't one-and-done, taking these young kids who don't get this college coaching anymore, it takes a long while for them to get it, and then to build the system, have the system sort of fall in place around them like they did here. And the problem is, next year they're going to have to maintain this, which I don't think they will.
Well, that's the most important point within the end, is it sustainable? And I mean, for Oladipo, maybe they'll get another great year out of him as he's in his mid to late, when he's getting into his mid 20s. So if he's, I'm looking at it right here. He is, I know this is very fantastic podcasting, but he was age 26 years old. He's
entering his prime.
Yeah, he's right there. So, but what I'm saying is that they might get another good year or two out of him because they got him locked in until 2021. But what it is that can they still get upward trajectory out of Turner in the regular season? Domantas Sabonis, he was a 6-man. Can you kind of nudge him in as a starter at the 4 and get the same production? Lance Stevenson is always a wild card. Is this something that you can sustain around Oladipo, or do you have to sort of and this is the one problem that Charlotte had, is that they convinced themselves that they could, if they just sustain the core, they could stay good, and they didn't realize you got to make some changes.
Well, Charlotte has their own problems, and tune into the Charlotte episode wherever it may be. I don't know, but don't forget, I think right now, looking ahead, the weak link has to be, as much as you just praised him, I think it would have to be Thaddeus Young.
Yes,
they have to upgrade him with maybe a Derek Favors or.
So you're saying that Thaddeus, if he opts out, that you'd have to find a suitable or even better replacement.
Don't you think like a Derek Favors, a Jabari Parker, a Julius Randle could fit in that system?
If you're getting I don't know necessarily about Favors. He'll probably demand something around 18 to 17 million a year at the least. If you try to get really reach and try to get a guy like a Jabari Parker, or let's say, for example, you try to get a pie in the sky kind of trade for Karl Anthony Towns or something like that. Well, now you're hitting the tax apron, because they're good in terms of their cap. They're actually below the cap. But if you really reach this offseason, now you've locked in your team.
Yeah, they have, but that's where everybody is these days. There's no way you can't lock in your team and sort of go move forward.
Yeah, but you don't want to do it like Charlotte did, and then you're in cap hell because you made the wrong choices.
Well, yes, lots of teams made wrong choices, and we've been going through a lot of these teams' wrong choices. But
yes.
Well, then let's put it this way: did they really make right choices when it came to drafting?
Drafting, no. I mean, let me ask you this: Ike Anigbogu, that was actually Leafs teammate in UCLA, and they got drafted at the same time. I don't know if he'll work out. Joe Young, people are like, well, he's stuck around. I'm like, yeah, he stuck around. The only notable thing he did was do commercials with Paul George. Yeah,
he was there. TJ Leaf is something like you said.
Edmund Sumner had a torn knee late in his college career, so he didn't play at all. They did pick up Trevor Booker. Do you think that's something that they could maybe just try to pick him up for maybe minimum, or maybe room exception type of stuff?
I think they could look one step above that. They have because since they have cap room, they could give those 1 year $5 million deals out to people.
And you can easily decline Al Jefferson's option. I mean, that's a no-brainer.
I mean, easily, or it's been already done, and it's just sitting like a file waiting to be sent.
You remember the Brendan Haywood TO at the end, where it was just fodder to make cap room for trades, and then you just decline it. But they had to do it before the deadline because Haywood knew he was never getting that money. Oh, his agent. But when you look at the team stats, like I said, defensively, that's always been the name of McMillan's game. He likes to try to keep them balanced on the defensive end. And they did. They were third in steals. They're kind of a quick team when I would watch them in some of those games. The one thing that I would call problematic for them in the playoffs was that they were mainly a mid-range shooting team. They were only 25th in three-pointers made, and even though they were good in terms of percentage, but they never attempted them because that's just not how they play. The thing with the NBA now is that no matter what, you got to take threes. And if you're in the bottom 5 in shooting threes, you're already putting yourself in a hole.
Okay, so then final quick question with them. Do they try to upgrade this roster, or do they stay pat as you seem to lean that way?
Well, I like the way you're going with the Thaddeus Young thing. If he does opt out, you have no choice but to upgrade, because now you're losing both bigs because you're going to decline the Al Jefferson option. You still have Turner and Sabonis, but you do have to save some of that room in the cap for Turner's eventual extension, which I would have to assume would be $20 million per year.
I don't know.
You don't know. No, I do think he'll get 4 for 80 or 5 for 100 or something like that. I think Turner is that kind of a player. Averages just under 2 blocks per game, 7 rebounds. He gets to the free throw line a lot. He's one of those guys that you would like to keep in the fold, and he's very young.
Okay.
And the other part is, can Oladipo be an alpha male? Can he continue to do it? Was this just a fluke?
Well, if he's learning how to do it now, and now he's finally getting it, as opposed to, well, you're the leader at 21, 5-6 years in the league makes a whole world of difference. And also, Collison and Bogdanovich's contracts will come off the books at the end of next season, so that's $20 million in space right there off the bat. So, I got to give credit to Kevin Pritchard. A lot of people tarred and feathered him for the George deal, but he really timed this out right, so that they're really not in a really terrible situation, even if they try to upgrade this summer. They still have some backup plans in terms of cap space if they want to get better down the road, and if they try to do an upgrade this year and it doesn't work. Okay, well, that's the Indiana Pacers. And that's going to be doing it for this episode. I'm glad for everybody listening to it. Still got a little bit left to go. Adam, do you have anything for us before we get out of Dodge? Hey, thanks for listening to this part. Check out the other parts. They're all equally as good. We're not pooped out yet, but we're getting there. So
On behalf of Adam Murray, this is Andrew Riche. We'll see you again.